Hi everyone, welcome to the recording of Colon 5, which is the debugging in GitHub Colon. So for this Colon, we will be talking about different strategies for debugging three main types of errors, which are compile time errors, runtime errors, and logical errors via case study of the alien mover code from lecture and code from the erase lecture. Although this isn't directly applicable to Doodle Jump, many of the errors and strategies will be directly applicable to the project Doodle Jump. So basically, the colon will then review basic GitHub commands and provide an understanding of how Git merges work and how you can solve it. And having these GitHub issues will make working on Doodle Jump with their partner so much easier and prepare you for future CS opportunities like internships, hackathons, and more. So right now, what I've done is I've downloaded the stencil code for colon 5. And the first type of errors that we will be going through are compile time errors. So compile time errors are errors when Java can't even run the program and Java found issues while compiling the program before it ran it. So the issue is usually caused by syntax errors or just illegal things in Java. All right. So first thing we'll do is we'll run the app class. Okay, so we get an error when we run the app class because Java's finding an issue when it compiled the program. So actually, this is a very useful error message. The blue line tells us exactly where in what file the error is in, and the red part here tells us what line and what character it is. So as we can see here, our error is in colon 5, in the directory colon 5, and in the constants.java file. And it is line 13, which is right here, and it's character 47. So actually, Java tells us right here that a semicolon is expected. So that is our error, and that's the thing that we're missing. And if we hover over here, it says semicolon expected. So basically, Java's just telling us that here we're just missing a semicolon. Okay, so we should have fixed that issue. Now let's run app again. Oh, we get another error. And notice how actually when running the app, it brings us exactly to where the error is. So as we can see here again, the blue line tells us that the error is in directory colon 5, and it's in alien.java. It's in the alien.java file, and it's line 13 and character 17. And the error message is Java cannot find symbol, and the symbol is method ellipse, location, like it said, colon alien. And basically what Java is saying here is that they're just confused about what ellipse is because they think that ellipse is a method, but in this case, it's not a method. We're trying to create an ellipse for the face of the alien. So notice how there's a red line under ellipse. So this is actually very useful information as we can hover over it. And basically, it tells us that method call expected, which is what we had in our error, method call expected, which basically means that Java is expecting like a method call. But if we go down here, it actually tells us insert new, which is really helpful because that is our issue. We are missing the new keyword, so Java thinks that it's a method. So you can either type in new or you can just, click insert new from the red underline. But sometimes it's not like the action suggested for Java isn't always reliable, so be careful about that, and we'll show you later on. Okay, so now that we fixed this, let's move on to the next error. Let's run app again. And it says a Java cannot find symbol. So notice how for both the second error for this error, the terminal says cannot find symbol. So this is actually showing us that different errors can produce the same error message. And notice how location is variable organizer of type colon 4 plain organizer. So this can be quite confusing sometimes. So my advice would just be focused on the blue line. It's just easier to use the blue line to find the error location. So the blue line location tells us that it's the errors in the directory colon 5 and app.java. So we're in app.java and it's line 11, character 38. Line 11, right here. So Java does a very helpful thing where if something is wrong, then basically it shows up in red, and if you hover over it, it kind of tells you what is wrong. So it says cannot resolve method get root in paint organizer. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's like a little I'm gonna scroll a little bit. Yes. But the common causes of cannot resolve method error are so solving error in a method name or calling a method on an instance of the incorrect class. So for example, if the getRoot method is in the paint organizer class, but you're calling getRoot on an instance of scene, that Java will be really confused because there is no getRoot method in the scene class. So it will be so it just won't understand what is going on. Okay. And then look here, it says get root, create method get root and paint organizer. Okay, so this is an instance in which we need to be cautious about what we do when it comes to the actions button. So let's actually check the paint organizer class. As you can see here, get roots is gray, which means that as you can see here, method get roots is never used. So it seems like we either have to call get roots on organizer, or we made a spelling mistake, we just need to delete the S. So now it's getting called an app. So that shows you that sometimes like you didn't want to rewrite or write a new get root method. You just wanted to either change the method that's called or, delete an S. So sometimes be cautious of what uh Java tells you to do. And yeah, so that concludes our compile time issues. So basically, an overview is if you have a cannot find symbol issue that occurs when you're trying to reference a symbol that has not been defined or imported properly. And a character expected error is occurs when like a necessary character is missing. Okay, so now let's try to run it since now our program can actually run and compile. Oh, let's see. Now we're getting a runtime issue. So basically, runtime issues are different than compile time issues because this is after you fix all the syntax issues and the Java program can kind of like run. In this case, it kind of like, freaked out a little bit, but in most cases, it can just run. And then, so the most two common runtime errors that students or like you will face are probably like null pointer exceptions, which is when you're trying to reference an object or location memory that doesn't exist, or an array index out of bounds error, which we'll cover later. So now let's take a look at the error we have. So it's an array index out of bounds exception. And it gives us this number. Interesting. And it kind of gives us a stack trace. So this stack trace basically tells us the flow of the error. So usually the first line will be where like the root of the issue is. And then if we go down, we can see that when this is called, that causes issue. And then when you make a new instance of the class that make a local variable of the class, it causes an issue. So it kind of just creates this chain effect. But usually the first blue line that you can click will bring you to the root of the issue. So basically what we can do here is let's run our program again, and then we can see the effects more clearly when we see the graphical element. Oh, we can't even run it. Yes. So we can't even run it because of that issue. So what we can do right now is we can use the debugger. So the debugger is a very, very helpful tool for us. Let me just find a real example. Yes. So basically what you can do is you can actually put a breakpoint line right here. So a breakpoint line is when you want the program to stop at a certain point, which is right before the for loop, so that you can actually step into the for loop and see the value of, I each time, or see the value of something each time. So basically, now that we set a breakpoint here, the program is going to stop right here, and then we can step into this for loop. So let's run the program. Okay, so yeah, it brings us to right here. And the reason why we put a break line here is because it's like it seems most likely that the issue is somewhere here. So yeah, like sometimes you might have to like guess a little bit, or like you put it where the program tells you, and then you just step through to see what is going on. Okay, so let's step into. And what I'm planning to do now is that planning to check the value of I each time. increments by one. And just to remind you, this we're signing the uh, each index of numbers to the I value. So basically, if I is zero, then the item at this on numbers at index zero would also be set equal to zero. Okay, so let's step in. All right, so when I is zero, no, the first elements of numbers is zero, and then when I is one, numbers is also one. So two, three. Okay, this is all expected behavior, which is good until eight, nine, 10. So when I reaches 10, we get an array index out of bounds exception. And this makes sense because if you take a look here, numbers only has 10 spaces, right? And the each of the spaces have already been filled by a number. So when I reaches 10, it actually goes one beyond the size of the numbers array because the numbers array, the max index of that is 9. So 10 goes beyond that. So what we can do here is basically like the debugger showed us exactly when the error happens, and we found out why the error happened, so we can just delete the equal sign because then it'll bring I up to 9 but not to 10. Okay, so I think we fixed that issue. So let's run it again. Stop and rerun. Okay. I don't know if you can see. Let me just take a quick break so that so you guys are able to also see this. Okay, so now we have our moving alien showing up. So let's move right, move left. Huh, okay. That isn't working. That is really, really strange because that definitely should be working. So I'm gonna show you guys. I'm going to share my screen again with my IntelliJ. And oh my gosh, look, it's giving us an error. So now it's giving us null pointer exception error, which is really interesting. And that's something that you guys might have to experience a lot. But so it's telling us that the error is Paint Organizer Java 35. All right, so let's go to where that is. Um, 1 second. Okay. Let's go here. And basically, it's somewhere here, something is not right. So one of these values, whether it's an alien button or array example or button pane or something is null. Because it brought us to this specific method. And right now, what we can do, I'm going to show you two methods on how to debug this. So one thing that we can do is we can put print lines. So we can print out each button actually to see whether each button has a value. And I'm only printing out buttons and I'm only printing out the alien because it's not very likely that array example is null because we made one, like we have the class. And it's not very likely either that button pane is null because we pass it in. And if you look up here, we do pass it in. So sometimes it takes like kind of a little judgment on what is wrong. Okay, so I will just print out the first B1 and B2 just for saving time. Okay, so right here, I'm printing out B2 and I'm just like adding the B2 like colon thing to make it more intuitive for me to read and understand what's going on. And then I'll print out the alien, this dot alien. All right. So now let's run the program again. All right. Okay, wonderful. So now I'm gonna screen share what is going on in the moving class. Oh, actually, no, I do not need to. So now let's go back to IntelliJ. And basically, we see that the buttons are printed out. So we do see that the buttons have value. It says button style class buttons. That shows us that B1, B2 do have values. And as you can see here, move left, move right. That's what they're called. And then, but we do see that alien is null. So this dot alien is actually null. And when you print it out, and if something doesn't have a value, Java will just basically say null. So that's one way that we can figure out where a no pointer exception is coming from print lines. But another way is that we can actually set a breakpoint. So let me just delete that. And then what I'll do is I'll set a breakpoint at maybe 35, right before where the like so the line in which like Java told us the problem was coming from. All right, just making sure that I don't have any breakpoints anywhere else. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna set a breakpoint. Oops, not here. I'll set one here. Okay. So now let's run it with our debugger. All right. So as you can see here, it gives us the value of everything else. So it tells us that the button pane is not null because it has a value of hbox. It tells us that A has, in a very example, it's not null. It tells us that B1, B2, B3, B4 all have buttons, as you can see right here. But it tells us that this dot alien is null. So that's how you know that this dot alien doesn't have a value. It's not really, we can't really use it because there's no value. So what we can do is go up here. And we see that we did declare, it actually even tells us here. It tells us that we did declare an alien instance variable, but we just never gave it a value. So if you look here, we actually accidentally made it a local variable. And so now we just need to put this dot alien and that fixes it. And this is a really common issue. I was stuck on it for a long time for Tetris, so don't worry about it. This is a very easy fix. Okay, so next, let's try to run out again. Maybe we fixed it. Stop and rerun. Okay. Second. All right. So this is our moving alien. Move right, move left. Okay, so now those methods are working. And now let's go to array list. Okay. Huh. Let's check if that's working. We know that array is working because we did fix that earlier, and it should be printing out all of the numbers right here. But if you scroll up, just to show you guys, oh, sorry, I need to share my screen, but array should be working. And when you click array list, let me show my screen from the IntelliJ perspective. But after I clicked array list, right here, I got an error. So the error that I'm getting is concurrent modification exception. So concurrent modification exception is pretty much like when you're modifying array list when you shouldn't be, usually that is the issue. So let's go to the stack trace again and let's click on where it's telling us that the error is. So it's telling us that the error is our array example java.32. Okay, so basically the issue is here in this method. Um, so this is kind of like a more like just like conceptual thing, but basically what we have to do here is we kind of have to change the for each loop to a for loop, because if you have a for each loop, you can't modify the array list at all when you have a for each loop. So you can't be removing elements from the array list. But if you have a normal for loop, then you can. So let's try to change it so that we're making a normal for loop. So for int I equals 0, oops, I equals less than this dot cool words dot size, and then I plus plus. Okay, and it's expecting a word. So what we can do is we can assign just like a variable like this dot cool words dot get I. So basically, cool word is just storing the word at that cool words contain at index I. So for example, if like at index 2, like cool words the item in cool words at index 2 is like ice cream, then word will be ice cream. So now we print out word, and if word equals Andy, then we remove it. But we also need to decrement the pointer by 1 because the size of the array is shifting down by 1. So you kind of have to like reflect that in the pointer because otherwise the pointer is going to go over the original size as it's going to keep on going. So yeah, like once you remove something, everything shifts back 1, which is why I have to remove decrement the pointer by 1. But yeah, as you can see here, all right, this is working. We have it working. And then now this also should be working because we're making a normal for loop, which means that we can actually edit array list while doing that. All right, so let's try to run it again. Stop and rerun. Okay, and then I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, so move right, move left, that works. Arrays, array list. So now let's see if it gives us an error again. Okay, it actually doesn't give us an error. It prints out Andy, I forgot how to say this, Andy, and whatever the words, and it's not even giving us an error anymore. So we did it, guys. Okay, so now that we're done with runtime errors, I'm just going to give a quick like cheat sheet overview. So no pointer exceptions, once again, is when you're trying to reference an object or location memory that does not exist. An array index out of bounds exception occurs when a necessary character, well, an array index out of bounds error occurs like if you're modifying array list with a for each loop and you're not supposed to, or something is just not being modified. When something is being modified when it shouldn't be. Okay, so now that we're done with the runtime errors, as you can see here, we do have some issues with our alien because first of all, our aliens don't have eyes. It's just a green blob. And also when it's moving right, it's moving left. And it's when we want it to move left, it's moving right. So let's take a look at what's going on. So first of all, let's try to fix the graphical issues. Graphical issues are usually like easier to fix because they're usually caused by like small JavaFX like mistakes, like not adding things to the pane. So for example, let's check our alien class because that's when, we're creating our alien shape. So we have a face, we give it a color, eye, right eye, location. And as you can see here, the issue is that we're only adding the face to the root, to the border, to the pane, but we're not adding our eyes. So what we can do here, we can just add the eyes, this dot right eye, and that should add the eyes graphically. Okay, so let me just rerun this. Okay, and let me just share. All right, so now our alien has eyes. But the problem is it's still moving left when we want it to move right, and it's still moving right when we want it to move left. So that is an issue. So basically, now let's try to take a look at our move right and our move left method. So as you can see here, we printed out our constant distance. So our distance x that we wanted to move out each time, and it's negative. And that's an issue because the top left corner is 0, 0. So like when you want an object to move right, then you have to add a positive integer to it. And then when you want a method to move left, then you have to you have to subtract a positive integer from it. Or like something needs to be subtractive, something needs positive. So numbers, so for moving right, x should be getting larger, and for moving left, x should be getting smaller when you call get center x. But here it's like kind of reversed. So because it's negative, so this is like subtracting and this is adding. So let's go back to our constants class, and let's go here. And as you can see here, it's negative. So what we can do here is we can just delete negative. And then let's try to rerun it. Maybe that will work. All right. And now let's move right, move left. Now it works. Wonderful. So that concludes our logical error section. And just to conclude, like the different debugging methods we've shown you are print lines, we didn't show you this, but you can comment out specific chunks of code just to see like what's working and what's not working. And you can look at the stack errors and use the debugger. And next, we're going to be showing you how to use GitHub and Git conflicts. Yes. Okay. Basically, after I finish doing that, I just git push my code to GitHub, and yeah, now it resides in GitHub.
Hey everybody.
Hi guys.
I'm Brendan,
I'm Isabella.
and today we're going to be taking over for step 3 of the GitHub and debugging code along. We're taking over from Kathy and Janu. We're excited to talk about GitHub, the importance of it, and how you guys are going to be using it both in CS15 and just throughout your career at Brown if you continue with CS. Yeah, Isabella's going to talk a little bit more about that, but
Yeah, so for most of your time at Brown, GitHub will mainly be used as a way for like classes here to keep student projects organized, but that's definitely not the last time you're going to see it. So you'll definitely soon realize GitHub is very, very flexible and it's incredibly useful for collaborative projects like Doodle Jump, where you have multiple people trying to make different changes to the same project. You can think of it sort of like a Google Doc where you have a bunch of people editing, but it gets saved on like a cloud or something that's not local to one person's computer. So when we want to work effectively with Git, it's a good way to show a code's like package history, sort of like with the Google Docs version history. And we do this through commits and comments. And it's also helpful to allow people to pull different versions of the code, like restoring an old version of Google Doc. And just overall, learning Git will take a lot of time, so don't worry if you're not 100% comfortable with it just now. The main goal for this code along or this section is just to get you comfortable with the Git basics. And especially because Doodle Jump is a partner project, it's very important that you're able to navigate GitHub because you don't want to get stuck with a merge conflict, but we'll show you how to fix that now.
yes, exactly. Not something to hate. It's a tool to help you. Yeah, awesome. So to start off, we're just gonna go through like the basic, Git commands, something you guys have already kind of been working through, both, when you're, adding your code to submit to Gradescope, but also in like your GitHub lab you had a little while ago. Okay, yeah, the first one obviously is add. And what add does is that sets the scope, right? And tells, sorry, it should be git add, but basically, that sets the scope and tells Git like what files we want to be used or changed and adds like a change to the stage. Commit is almost like a snapshot of the current project. At that point in time, it kind of like freezes it, like the changes that you've made, and then pushes it to a like common repository, which is like the safe drive. And then pull is the opposite, gets the most recent push commit, regardless of who pushed it. And to help like understanding all this jargon, I'm gonna segue to a diagram here that you can also reference, but it's also just good to help kind of understand how Git works, like from like on a hierarchical level, right? So if we take a look here, so we have our working directory, this staging area, and this local repository. And then we also have this remote repository, which is like GitHub itself, right? And so kind of what I talked about earlier, if you're working in your if you're working in your working directory and you make some changes, you can call git add, which takes the code and puts it onto the staging area, right? So it doesn't necessarily like it doesn't bring it to GitHub right away, right? So first when you do git add, brings us to the staging area, and then you have to do git commit, which I said earlier takes like this snapshot of your project and time and adds it to this local repository. So now this local repository is a repository that is local to you, not like accessible for everybody else. And then when you call git push, as you can see, it's going to then take the code from your local repository and push it to the remote repository on GitHub, which you can access digitally through the internet. And then the same way happens with git pull. You're taking it from GitHub, from online, and then taking it and pulling it into your remote repository. Git reset works the same way, but at like the staging area level. So, right, if you do git reset, it prevents you from like adding anything to like this staging area, kind of like goes back. And yeah, so this is like just a great way like to visualize it for you guys. Kind of helps you if you understand kind of how it works, it helps you understand if you run into any errors with these commands. So super important. Um, awesome. Okay. So I'm gonna go back to IntelliJ and right, so kind of we're leaving off where Kathy and Janu were at, which is like, finishing up all those debugging issues. And now like right now I'm just gonna go ahead and I want to just save the progress, save like what I have. So kind of following the commands I just talked about earlier, we would want to git push. So git add A and then git commit M. Oop.
Oh
Okay.
no.
Always remember you want to give a message when you try to commit. Just to tell GitHub, say, hey, this is why I'm committing this code. This is why I'm trying to push it to the main repository. So I'm going to go ahead, git commit, give it a descriptive message, saving debug progress. Awesome. Okay. Um, and now I'm going to git push, but
Oh
ooh. Oh
no.
no.
It looks like we have a
Okay.
merge conflict.
Awesome. Well, not awesome, but okay. Yeah, so merge conflicts, right? When do merge conflicts happen? Merge conflicts happen when two partners commit changes on the same lines without updating each other's local copies of the code beforehand. So Isabella, she made some changes to the code without me knowing. And I went ahead and tried to push the code that I have without taking into consideration her code. So we're going to go ahead um, and take a look at that.
Yeah, so you can go on GitHub, like the actual website, with your repository. And as you can see, the most recent commit was by me, changed alien color and eye radius. So Brendan can't commit without first pulling my changes and incorporating them into his code because GitHub won't let you have conflicting versions like being saved in that shared repository at the same time. So that's super important. That's why we ran into that error, which specifically says updates were rejected because the remote contains work that you don't have locally, which would be the work that I pushed.
Awesome. Okay. So we're going to go ahead really quickly and I'm going to go ahead and update some of my code. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and let's say I want to change the alien's color. I want to change it. Let's take a look at what it is. We go to alien. We have the color as chartreuse. I don't know what that color is, but we want to change it to light green. So I'm going to go ahead, change that. Light green. Okay, cool. And now I'm going to go ahead and change the radius. So I'm going to change the radius, the eye radius, from go to the constants class. I'm going to change the eye radius from 35 to 45. Awesome. Okay, cool. So, all right. So now I've made my own changes, and now I'm also going to go ahead and once again try to um, push them. However, before I try to do that, I'm going to go ahead and try to git pull. As you can see from this like little error, it's saying git pull before pushing again. So I'm going to go ahead and try to do that. Okay,
No.
interesting. So now as you can see, we have this error saying like your local changes to the following will be overwritten by merge, aliens.java, constants.java. Please commit your changes or stash them before you merge. And this happens, right? Because we tried to edit lines that were also edited by our partner in a previous commit that has been pulled. So Isabella can go ahead and describe the changes that she made.
Yeah, so something really cool about GitHub is when you press on the commit, so this was a commit I made, it shows you with this lovely UI what lines were changed. So the red shows you what line maybe was removed, and the green shows you what you added. So my change was I changed the color from chartreuse to red, and I changed eye radius from 35 to 20, which just so happens to be the exact same lines that Brendan just tried to change.
Yeah.
So that's why his error says that your local changes would be overwritten by merge, meaning that if he were to merge, my code that was already pushed to GitHub would overwrite his changes. And sometimes that's not necessarily what you want. But there is a way to fix like this conflict that we have.
Yes, exactly. So right. After so sorry. As we said earlier, right, we have this weird message. We don't really know what stashing means, so we're gonna go ahead and just like commit our changes right before we merge them. So to do this, we're gonna go ahead to git add a, what we said earlier, git commit m. We're gonna say updating alien color and iterate. Awesome. Always make sure it's descriptive. And then once again, we're gonna go ahead and git push. And now we're gonna try git polling. Okay. So as we see, right, we're getting this little extra error, right? And saying this stuff, a bunch of crap. But important thing we need to know is we have this stuff over here. Git config pull rebase false, and git config pull rebase true. So what we would want to do at this point is go ahead and type in git config pull dot rebase false. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and try to pull again. Okay, interesting. And now, as you can see, we have a bunch of weird lines happening. And so if we see constants is red and aliens is red. And so, right, like this is like some weird code, right? But what it is it shows um what your partner put and then what I put. So let's start by taking a look at alien, right? Let's go ahead and take a look. So if you can see, we have like this little caret arrow going left saying head, and then we have this little caret arrow going right and saying like a bunch of these weird like numbers and letters. What head is saying is that the code below head, this is what I put, which makes sense, right? I'm calling this dot face dot set fill light green. I wanted the alien to be light green, so that makes sense. But um, if we look below, or if we look above this weird like code almost, we see it's this dot face dot set fill color red, which is what Isabella put earlier, if we remember when we looked back at the GitHub. And like so this like token right here, or this like code is basically saying, hey, this is what Isabella put, and head is saying, hey, this is what I put. And so if we go ahead to constants, we can see the same thing, right? Head, we're setting the radius of the eye to 45, and then she set it to 20. So then I guess like right at this point, you're probably wondering, okay, so now what do I do? It ultimately depends on what you want to do. And so this is the importance of like talking with your partner and having a conversation and determining what you want to keep and what you want to delete. Because at this point, you can choose to I could choose to either delete everything that Isabella put, and so that would include deleting up to here, and then also keeping in mind, making sure to delete head, or I could delete my stuff and keep Isabella's, and that would include going ahead, deleting head and all that stuff, and then making sure to delete this code right here. Um, but it doesn't have to be this way, right? Like I could be either keep all of my stuff, or I could keep all of her stuff. But you can also do a combo of both. And like I said earlier, that kind of goes into like having a conversation with your partner and figuring out what you want to keep, right? So in this case, let's say I want to keep the alien color. So I'm going to do that. But I'm going to keep her radius, her eye radius. So to start, we're going to go ahead, delete the head like this. And then we're going to go ahead and delete her code. Awesome. And so now we can see, okay, this is kind of basically what I put, right? Nothing really changed. I'm setting the face to light green. And now I'm going to go to constants, but we're going to do the opposite. We're going to go ahead and keep her stuff and delete mine. And so that would entail going up to here, deleting head, and then deleting everything that I wrote. And then also deleting the equal sign. Make sure, guys, that you delete like the equal signs and like the carets because that's part of the merging like error that's provided. It's not something you want to keep in your code. And so once again, I'm going to delete the partner code or token. And there we go. And so now, as you can see, we've kept half and half, right? And so to finalize what we want to do, because you can see aliens, constants, a little bit, they're still red, we can go ahead, um, do git add a, git commit m, keeping my alien color Isabella IRAD. Awesome. And so now we can push
And it works.
and it worked, right? So now everything's all good. We keep tap in half and we can
show you on the GitHub too.
yes. And so now go ahead and update it.
Beautiful.
Yes. So there we go. And so now we can see everything's updated the way we want. We kept the eye radius for Isabella, and we kept my color, alien color. And so yeah, and so that's like a perfect example of what might happen to you guys during like dual jump and during like partner projects. Really important to keep this stuff in mind, both in CS15, but also moving forward, the different CS classes, like in 200, you're doing a lot of there's more partner projects that you're going to be running into these issues. And so I would say it's just really important to both, I guess know this knowledge, but also have like open dialogue with your partner. Stay in touch with them and like have a conversation and be like, okay, hey, this is what I'm going to be doing in the code. I'm going to push it. You make sure to pull it. Because the biggest the biggest cause of GitHub merges is communication, right? Poor communication. So that's the biggest thing I would recommend to all you guys. And yeah, that is the end of the GitHub merging and debugging code along. We appreciate you guys so much.
Good luck on Doodle
Good luck
Jump.
on Doodle Jump. You guys got this. Almost there. Um, and yeah, great job, everybody.